I wanted to shout out Nebraska here because Matt Rhule has built and he's stacked and he's trying to get this thing back to where Nebraska wants to be. But similar to Maryland, I think that defining the expectations can be a little tough. At FanDuel Sportsbook, the over/under win total is 7.5, over -122, under +100. 7-5, 8-4. I mean, given the investment, given the bluster, given the quarterback, I think 7-5 would be a disappointment.
I agree that it would be a disappointment, but I don't think Matt Rhule would be in any trouble.
Okay.
Because that would be a second straight season going to a bowl where you hadn't gone to a bowl for 9 years. I think the recent failures of Scott Frost will buy Matt Rhule far more patience. And I know that there was a ton of hype going into last year because of Raiola, and now he's entering his second year. They did get to a bowl, and you're hoping that you could take that step forward. I think if they go over this and they finish 8-4, everybody's very happy. I think if you finish 7-5, you're not super thrilled, but I don't see an outcome here where Matt Rhule's in real trouble now.
I think I agree with you. I do think Matt Rhule is still a good football coach. Does Nebraska have bigger expectations than that?
Ultimately, yes.
Yes.
But are they realistic expectations?
Not this year.
There's no Oregon and there's no Ohio State. You get Penn State on the road, which I think is where you want them because you don't want to waste a home win opportunity. You're not going to beat Penn State at home, most likely. I mean,
you know who's not doing anybody any favors in these conversations? Kirk Cignetti in Indiana. Because when we talk about expectations, we're all set the bar low, and then all of a sudden you see a team like that. And if I'm a Nebraska fan, I'm like, wait a second, Indiana just made the playoffs. And we can't get 8 wins. I think it's an anomaly. I think it was an outlier. So I get it, but I mean, that's probably where the high expectations come from.
Here's a scenario that I don't think is likely at all, but could look great at first and then play out poorly for Matt Rhule. If you look at their schedule, it is not crazy to think this team can start 8-0.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Their first 5 games are at home: Cincinnati, Akron, Houston Christian, Michigan, which at home, Michigan finished 6-6 last year, 7-5, not exactly an unbeatable team. Michigan State. Then you're on the road for Maryland, who we just talked about, not very good. Then you're on the road for Minnesota. That'll be a tough game. But then you get Northwestern at home. It is not insane to think Nebraska, if Dylan Raiola takes a step forward, is 8-0. And then you finish with USC, at UCLA, at Penn State, Iowa. So it could be a rougher finish, but this is a team to me that I think can go any number of directions. I do think that there is a floor of they will get to a bowl game with this schedule at minimum. But I do think there is room to have kind of a spike season here if things go right.
I think that's why there's some pressure because this schedule is not hard, right? This is one of the easiest schedules in the Big Ten. The non-con is a joke. Am I reading this buyout right? So they would owe him 90% of his remaining base salary.
Something like that, yeah.
Which is 50.1?
Probably.
If I did the math right on it. So I totally agree with Tom's point. First of all, that's a huge buyout. But, man, okay.
Also, didn't the guy who gave it to him leave?
For Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Yep.
Another school with an epic buyout history.
Okay, so tell me this. What is the most palatable 4 losses on the schedule if you're going to go 8-4? What 8-4
Penn State.
makes Nebraska fans most happy?
Penn State, Michigan, even though that's at home.
Because Michigan could be good. There's the Michigan is a 10+ win team scenario.
I don't think you want to lose to USC, but I don't think that would super anger anybody. I think the only games you can't lose are the Iowa game at the end of the season, and then Northwestern, Michigan State at home, Maryland on the road. I think those are games where it's we need to win these games.
So the 4th would be dropping a game at Minnesota?
Yeah. I mean, Minnesota's been so solid the last few years that I don't think any Nebraska fan's going to look at that as well, that's a terrible loss. I think they'll just be yeah, that makes sense.
So your wins then would be Akron, Cincinnati, HCU, which I think is Houston
Christian, yep.
Michigan
They
State
used to be Baptist, and now they're more inclusive. Is that right? Houston Baptist goes to Houston Christian. We're opening the doors now to everybody.
Is there a Houston Islam?
I'm going to vote. I'm just going to guess no, but there could be an academy. I mean, if there was Upper Room and Word of God, then like, of course there could be.
There's an incarnate word too. Isn't that where's that? Is that in Houston or is that in
Texas?
It's in Texas. It's in Texas somewhere. Apologies to Cam Ward's alma mater, but one of his 3 alma maters. But I don't know.
If you're Nebraska and your wins are Cincinnati, Akron, Houston Christian, Michigan State, Maryland, Northwestern, UCLA, and Iowa, and your losses are Penn State, USC, Minnesota, Michigan, I mean, doesn't that feel pretty hollow?
Yeah.
How many good teams did you beat? Maybe one in Iowa, and Iowa's projected to go 7-5. Like,
We will be keeping an eye on it for sure.